My mom was 30 when my accident happened. And I look at the fact that I don't know that I would have been able to handle what she did at 30, to be able to step up to and take care of all the stuff that she did.
During this thing happens, I pee on the dog, he whoops my ass. Mm-hmm. Him and my mom are in a fight, or she walks into my room, I'm changing, she looks at my legs. She said, "What happened?" And you can say it, like you've been talking with a lot of people recently, and my name has come up, and what has been the thing that they've said?
He seems like a great guy. I love his vibe and his energy. I have no idea what the fuck he does. What is a question that you wished everyone would ask you?
What makes you feel awesome? This is the simplest thing. The other day, I realized how to put an end card on my YouTube videos, and I was so happy. And at the end of that day, I wanted someone to be like, "Hey man, how did that end card work out?"
Welcome back, everybody, to Flipping the Lid. You know what we do here, but you have not seen me in this studio before. I've got an on-site location with the one and only Kelly Cardenas. He came in, I got to just sit down and be interviewed by him, and now I get to jump in and interview him. Here's the thing, he's been on my show before, but he epitomizes everything that we want to discuss on Flipping the Lid. He's real, he's raw, he has no shame or blocks or ego hiding anything. He's so transparent and so clear, and is a serial entrepreneur, a speaker, somebody who spent 30 years in the beauty industry, but also really helps people be able to get back into their vibe, to allow their heart set, their mindset, and their skill set to align so that they can actually have the greatest environments and the greatest lives surrounding them. So I can't wait to jump in today. And Kelly, dude, I'm so excited to be here with you, dude.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's an absolute honor.
Dude, we've been having fun so far.
Oh,
I mean, we were talking about the 400-pound deadlift that I did, all the ways that I've teased myself and been teased in the years, and you definitely spoke loud and clear to Mama Bogart and my bride, and for all those reasons, I love you, because those two women in my life are everything. So
Mama Bogart is a gangster,
dude. And I'm gonna say Mama Bogart in both respects. Mama, my actual mama, yeah. And then my wife, that's my baby's Bogart. Mama, yeah. Because dude, she really is. I didn't say it on the show, but I told you I used to think she was weak, but dude, she's tolerated me for 17 fucking years. There is no person that's weak that could tolerate that. Mm-hmm. Like I'm best in bite-sized pieces. I know this. So it's all good. Now, I give a really brief intro on you. Yeah. But who are you in your words?
A little kid that doesn't think that he can't.
Did that little kid ever not be a little kid?
I don't think so. I still see myself as a fourth grade kid, fearful a lot of times, scared out of my mind. But because we were in the situations that we were early on, yeah, it just was normal. Those things were just normal. So it wasn't, for me, I didn't associate the things that we were going through as, I just thought everyone was going through it. Yeah. And so I didn't realize it. And in some ways that's good. In a lot of ways, my wife is helping me to realize that, bro, you're repeating cycles. Yeah. And so I'm learning a lot through that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that that's not an uncommon thing. What I have to ask you though, I just realized this recently, because I have a 10-year-old son, that though I feel like I've matured and grown in life, I have the humor of a 10-year-old boy. Mm-hmm. That never graduated, and I still exist in that space. Is that the same for you?
Yeah, and my wife has the sense of humor of a 5-year-old boy. She nuts my daughter the other day.
Yes.
Like she was driving with my daughter's friends, and they said, "Oh, Mrs. Cardenas, can you put the CD in?" And she said, "CD's nuts." And
that is amazing.
I was like, "Baby, that doesn't even make sense." And she's like, "Yeah, but you can't pass it up." And all the kids in the back were like, "Did your mom just say that to us?" And my wife is like, ha, laughing about it. So
that is so funny.
She trumps my silly behavior, but her personality and sense of humor is unbelievable. So,
dude, I love that. You talked about challenging times that were normalized for you.
Yeah.
I know you grew up in a military family. Yep. Thank you and your entire family for service.
I didn't do anything.
No, but here's the thing. The family always serves, right? Because how often do families get moved around and families get displaced and families have to worry about somebody else being gone? Like, it's a reality of a military family, right? So give us a little bit of insight into those early years that had some struggle and some pain, and what patterns were created as a result of it that still exist for you today.
Well, I think that we didn't understand at the time, but it was a superpower. And every person that has a military background, whether it be you're a dependent, a military brat, which I want to make a movie about military brats because it's one of the coolest upbringings ever. or you're a spouse, or you're actually in the military, you have this superpower that no one else has. And I explained this to a bunch of veterans and they were like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, think about it. If you live in a neighborhood, if I checked out your neighborhood, most likely the demographics would be very, very similar as far as the type of people that live in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. If I went to any neighborhood, any area, it'd be the exact same way. But on a military base, you have every creed, race, belief system, all have to be in the same place, and you have to be friends because it's your neighbors. So I had, one of my friends, Alfred, is black and Japanese. My friend Will is black and Canadian. My other friend is Native American and white. We're Mexican and white. You had black and white together. You had all these things, and you had to deal. So you had to understand why my Korean friend, who's half Korean, is eating Korean food. Why my friend who's Thai, the Thai food is different than Korean, than the Chinese friend, than the Japanese friend. And you had to understand these cultures. So it became a superpower.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it. We were just kids.
Yeah.
And so I think that part, I think the cycle part is calling my son boy, because my dad called me boy. My pops did. He would be like, boy, blah, blah. And I find myself saying the same thing to my son. I find myself being the get off my lawn kind of guy. Yeah. I don't let anyone in the neighborhood call me by my first name. It's Mr. C or Mr. Cardenas, and you ain't calling me by my first name. Oh. And my wife is like, are you kidding me? It's 2024. You need to chill out. And I'm like, my dad would come down, Pops would come down from heaven. He wouldn't be ascending like Jesus. He'd be coming down like the superpower, and he would drop on people's heads and be like, yo, you don't call them by their first name. And she's like, does it make that much of a difference? And I'm like, I think the other cycle that I see, though, is that I have the tendency to get myself in motion and think that I'm doing something just because there's a lot of things happening. Yeah. And I make myself busy. So sometimes I don't have to focus on the things that actually need to be done.
I mean, that's a common pattern of avoidance in certain things. I'll just say that right there. But it's also interesting because even just a couple of things that you referenced, there's this inherent formality and hierarchy that's implied by wanting everybody to call you Mr. Cardenas, right? Or calling your son boy, right? And what that means historically as men have been saying that to their sons for generations, right? And it is almost this level of formality, this properness, this level of hierarchy. But something tells me that that's not why you say it.
It's the respect side of it. It's the, say for instance, my daughter dated a little kid and he was a cool kid and, it didn't work out and I was happy. If his parents are listening, I love him, everything like that. But my daughter knows I want her to have a guy who's going to respect him or respect her. And it was a respect factor. My pops, out of respect, I would never call an adult. And even to this day, like I have a friend, his name is Mr. Mike Bender. And Mr. Mike Bender is a very wise man. He's my friend. We ride bicycles together. Yeah. We hang out. But for me, it's a formality out of respect to help the person to understand that I respect where you came from. I respect where you're at and I respect where you're going. And my pops always told me that was a thing and I didn't understand it in fourth grade. That's when I remember him starting to say it. He said it before that. But that was going to be a key that would help to unlock a lot of things that no one else would get access to that thing because they didn't have respect. Not because they weren't talented, not because they didn't have the money or the influence or any of those things. But when you show respect to people, it changes the paradigm. It changes, for lack of a better word, the vibe.
Well, given the clear lean on respect, I'm going to take it at an even deeper level of respect that you had me talk to your kids as Uncle Brian, who was run over by a truck with his arm torn off and deadlifted 400 pounds and had it bit off by a shark and all the above. I mean, I'll be Uncle Brian to anybody. I like that. Like I told you, my kids try to make anybody they see as pure individuals part of our family. It's something that's so real. And that, to me, I feel like love is often one of the greatest demonstrations of respect. And so how do you define respect and how do you show that in a day-to-day life in terms of interactions?
Sometimes it's in tone. Tone of voice, I think is a big one. I think that I was talking the other day and a paradigm shift happened for me when I realized that my vibe wasn't the energy that I brought in. It was the way that people felt about me when I left. But I had seen this in so many different areas in my life. And, you know, I had a woman come into a salon that we owned years ago, and I thought that the type of music that I chose was going to be perfect because our music had gone down, and you could only do stations. And there was a radio station I put on, and it was a Christian radio station. Well, who could get offended by Christian radio? You can't. Even if you're not Christian, it's still, you know, talking about good things, whatever. And this lady was like, oh my gosh, this is me and my son's song. And I said, oh, wow. You know, I chose the right station. And then about 5 minutes later, she started crying. And I was like, oh, I thought you told me that this was you and your son's song. And she said, he passed away yesterday. And so what I realized is sometimes the tone of my voice, if I'm a super energetic guy, which I like to think that I am, but I can't bring that energy into every environment. I've got to understand where that person's at.
Bingo.
Right? And if I can understand where they're from and then where they're at, I used to always jump to the flip side of it. I used to always jump to where I could take you. And I believe this wholeheartedly. I believe, and I said this in my industry before, and I believe it in this industry now. If you gave me 40 hours, I could teach a monkey to do whatever skill, fill in the blank, if I had the attention. And I think that a lot was my ego, though, because my ego would tell me, like, seriously, like if I had your undivided attention, if I took the human factor out and you just listened, you did exactly what I told you to do, I could take you to wherever you needed to go. But then I realized that there was a human involved, and that human had gone through things. And if I didn't spend time to figure out where they're at, which takes time, energy, and a lot of times I didn't want to spend that energy, then I would, it just wouldn't hit. Yeah. It wouldn't work.
And it does take time, I think, to really be able to start to like cater to that and understand it. And I don't like it. And be, well, yeah. What don't you like about it?
I don't like, because it takes time.
Yeah.
I want to put it in the microwave. I want to put it in the microwave for 1.5 minutes, take off the top, punch some holes in it, and eat my damn dinner. But what I've learned is that it never tastes good. Like, it doesn't. If you put it in the microwave, it doesn't taste good. If you if you preheat the oven for 45 minutes and then put it in for 45 minutes and then let it cool for like 20 minutes and then eat it, it tastes awesome.
Always better.
But it takes a long time.
Yeah. Do you know the only thing better in the microwave that I found, by the way? The legendary protein pastries that Bruce Cardenas gave me last night.
Have you tried them in a toaster oven, though?
No, but that's how I do Pop-Tarts, so I'm going to. I haven't, but that is definitely going to be the next level.
But that's the challenge for me, Brian, is just the patience and the waiting. Like, you know, God will give me a vision, and I want it now. And that's what's been the challenge for me. That's, my wife has been always, like, my wife is slow and steady. Like, she sets her mind on something. She adds a little bit of action to it. She gives herself grace. She's like dropped from heaven. You know, obviously she smells nice and says nice things, and she's perfect. But then I literally see the vision, and then I jump, and I'm like, I want the vision now. I want to see it now. And she's just like, come on, dummy. Don't you see it's happening? But you've got to be okay with a little bit of process. Yeah. And that's where I've struggled.
By the way, I fully resonate with that. That's something that I've struggled with a lot in my life. I mean, instant gratification is like real, right? And then, I have an idea. Why isn't it done yet? Right? Like, it's so easy to go there. But I got to challenge you just a little bit, because I see your tendency, but bro, you've got fucking dreads. Yeah. That shit doesn't get microwaved. That takes years to develop what you've got, and commitment and focus to align to a vision. And so you're literally wearing something that could never have been microwaved.
Well, I think that's because of those things that happened early, right? And so that resilience and the, people talk about grit, or they talk about resilience. I mean, for us, that was just a way of life. It really was. And having to push through things, it wasn't because I wanted to. I always wanted them quick, but literally I got, with my pop, the way that he raised us was like, if you give me a shot and I do it enough times, I don't care what it is. It's going to happen. Yeah. Like, say for instance, the other day, I've been reaching out to Daryl Strawberry for better part of a year and a half, 2 years. He just responded. And And now he just had a heart attack right before his birthday. So we're going to pray for him. But just recently, just the other day, he did. But it took a year and a half, 2 years. Eddie George. I reached out on like cold Eddie George through Instagram for 3.5 years. And I'm a huge Oilers fan, big Titans fan. And I just figured like he was busy for the 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Another one, Steve Caballero. Steve Caballero, I've been reaching out to for 2 years. Every day that I reached out to him and he didn't respond, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm horrible.
Yeah.
But that's the way that I was raised. So that resilience part of it and going through, don't get me wrong. Like there's the side that here's what I want, but here's the things that I'm willing and ready to do. And it's just like the podcast, like, you know, the podcast or the speaking and stuff like that. Like the speaking part, I've been doing it for 30 years. So I just figure if I do it a lot, it'll work out with the podcast. You know, I tell you, there's not a day that goes by, well, a couple of days, that someone will come to me and be like, yo, what is the podcast leading to? And I'm like, to the podcast.
Great conversations.
To the podcast. And they're like, yeah, but, and they always have the same question. Like, how do you monetize that? And for me, I believe I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I also think it's interesting though, how often we try to tie specific things to each other, right? Like because we're doing a podcast, we must monetize it. Yeah. And the money must come directly because we have the podcast, right? Whereas I'm one of those that I believe like if we're operating in alignment and we have things that are cohesive and working together, right? Like the podcast is just a bigger part of a broader strategy. And the reality of it is whatever monetization will come from it probably will never be a direct line. It'll probably be a dotted line, right? Unless you go in with the exact plan to be like, nope, this is how I'm going to monetize. Yeah. But it is interesting though, because it's like, this is also a passion project for you. You clearly love connecting with people. Yeah. You love getting to know people's stories, what makes them who they are, the ways that they've had to overcome, the ways that they show up in the world today, right? Like you're fascinated by the human experience. And the way that you lead an interview, it makes that so obvious. And so
thank you for allowing me to joke at times and take you from one subject to another one. I want to thank you and I want to honor you in that, because I think a lot of times I've said before that people will get in mode.
Yeah.
And they get in, and especially, I mean, you're a large speaker and you know, you have tons of influence, and there's a lot of times where you can't get a person out of mode.
Yeah.
And they're in mode and they're like, no, I'm going to deliver this message. And then when you throw something at them, they're like, no, but let me go back to it. But you were able to flow in and out because you were present in it. And I want to honor that. So.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. I've also been on Dropping Bombs with Brad Lee twice.
Okay.
And once you sit in that seat, like that guy's like the master poker, the master interrupter. Like he loves to, just to your point, like get people out of their rhythm. I would tell you that like I vibed and rolled with him in that, because guess what? Like I'm ADD as fuck too. Right. and though I have the ability to be like really present and intense and like have a linear path, and you know, I don't have a script or an intake form or anything from what we're just sitting here having a conversation. Yeah. Right. Well, natural ebb and flow in conversation has distractions. Right. And so for me, I look at it like, you know, we didn't talk about a lot of my philosophies, the things that I do, the way that I help people. And by the way, I'm really fucking happy we didn't. Right. Because what happened instead is you were able to take me deeper. You were sitting here reading full time, and whether you were trying to break a pattern in something that you thought I was trying to get a message in, and I don't think that was ever it, or it was like, oh shit, my brain just came up with this really cool idea and I want to know, right? Like you just let it come out. And so I honor the natural ebb and flow of just connecting, because everybody's different. And here's the reality. What I learned a long time ago is that if I go into anything with an agenda, I'm going to miss what actually could happen. Yeah. Right. If I go in with like, I'm attached on, I need to get this message in, or I need to get Kelly here, or I need it always takes me away from what really is going to happen, which is always better than whatever I think is going to happen. Yeah. And so I want to honor you for the way that you navigated it, because it also takes, it takes a little bit of grit as an interviewer to just like interject, right? When someone's in the middle of a conversation. I know sometimes, even though I do that, I also struggle with that sometimes, because it's like, I want to be respectful and honoring them. But at the same time, I would never want anybody to get upset or reactive because I'm the host of the show.
Yeah.
I sat in your seat, not the other way around, right?
Well, the one thing that you didn't answer completely is why is there a fiscal year? No one has ever answered this. No one has ever given me a reason. All my CPA, I have friends who are the CFO of like the Mandalay corporations. That's a lot of casino. And I've asked them, why a fiscal year? Why does it start in June? Can you choose it? And none of them. They were like, well, it starts in June and ends. And I was like, why? I was like a 4-year-old. Why? Why?
So I'll answer the question as it relates to the business that I was in. Because you're right, I didn't fully answer it.
No, I'm talking about full scope. Why? The history of a fiscal year. Why is it?
I think that it aligns based on the needs of certain industries, right? So there's the calendar year and the calendar fiscal year, and then there can be off calendar fiscal years.
Got it. But I'm saying like why fiscal and what does the word mean and where did it come from?
So the fiscal year is literally the 12-month window in which revenue is being tracked within an organization.
Got it.
Okay. And for example, in the old world I was in within in insurance, 80 to 90% of the policies are placed on 1/1.
Got it.
So the heavy workload for all of our teams, for everything that's happening, the placement, because so much of the business is structured on 1/1.
Yeah.
If we were also focused on wrapping up our budgeting, our projections for the next year, our bonuses, our hiring practices, right? Now, the flip side to that is there's lots of people that would look and do a fiscal year slightly different so that from a budgeting perspective. We did it from a workload perspective, but others will do it from a budgeting perspective. So in my old world, we would have clients switch their fiscal year from a 1/1 to a 3/1 or vice versa to align with either budgeting or projections around cost.
Got it.
And so for me, it has to do with like the workflow and the ebb and flow in particular industries and both the needs for demand of like human capital, but also as it relates to like workflow in terms of budgets.
Do you have to report this to the IRS and then you can do your taxes based off your fiscal year?
So they measure always on a calendar year, no matter what.
No matter what.
Okay. And so it's the 12-month window from the IRS perspective is always going to be 1/1 to 12/31 or whatever it is, right? And then the filing on that. Okay. So all that it would change for us with an off-cycle year was mid-year, I would have to anticipate and change my quarterly estimates for payments.
Got it.
As a K1, right? Okay. Because I've got 4 months in one fiscal year, or no, 5 months, no, 4 months because it was a 5/1. So 4 months in one fiscal year, 8 months in another. And so by the time we're doing budgets and projections, we're already 4 months into a calendar year, but that meant I made my tax projections on a quarterly perspective based on what I anticipated my growth in my book would be without even knowing what was going to happen for the remaining 8 months of the year.
This is the first time, the very first time, and I'm 48 years old, about to be 49.
You said you could be my father. You're 10 years older than me, bro.
I'm from Utah. I'm not. You're from Utah, but my parents are from there. When you're 10, you're ready to go.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? You're ready to go. You know what I'm saying? You want to have a full family. My mom was only 15.
Did that make any sense though? To the
fiscal? Yeah. That was the first time that anyone's ever, because everyone sidesteps it. Everybody sides. And what I always wonder is like, why has it always become so complicated? Like the words, like, and I'm fascinated by words and cultures, not just cultures as far as like where I grew up, but I'm talking like cultures in the financial world. Yeah. I've always felt that they made complicated words so they would scare people off. Yeah. And then people would, and I look at a lot of the times the words. Yeah. They're $5 words with 2-cent meanings.
No, I mean, I only understand it from the world that I was in, right?
Got it.
But like I said, I mean, I would have clients that their fiscal year was like 7/1, right? So
you could choose it.
Most organizations can choose it.
Wow.
But what would happen in the 7/1, or they would have a 1/1 fiscal year and they'd have a 7/1 insurance renewal on a $35 million plan. Right. And then if they get in June a 30% rate increase because of the exposure and the impact in their plan over the course of the last year, then now they're in the middle of a fiscal year and having to alter their budgets by 20 to 30% on one of their top line items.
Got it.
Right. And so what would often happen then in those types of scenarios, not all organizations did this, but we would often have people either move their fiscal year to align with their plan year, which would be calendar for a lot of them, or vice versa. If they had a 3/1 renewal, what did they know? If 80% of the business, 80 to 90% of the business is placed in 1 month,
Yeah.
they're going to get more attention from the underwriters and the carriers to give them a better rate, better focus, better pricing. And so a lot of folks strategically would start to move off of the 1/1 renewal period.
Yeah.
But what would that force them to do? Well, man, if I've got a fiscal year at 1/1, but I just moved my whole renewal period to 3/1, we had groups move their fiscal year to align with 3/1 because their second line item, which was their human capital expenditure, was the biggest variable that would change within the middle of their fiscal year, and they didn't have a way to predict it or align it to the way they were tracking their fiscal year. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Well, it's genius. Like, again, I've asked so many of my friends, and none of them gave me an answer.
Well, give me a fucking high five then, because I just gave you a real answer.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's awesome.
Fiscal years. That's what we do here.
So you're going to have to scrap this part of the recording and fucking dub it into our other one so that you can see the...
No. I want. They're just going to have to watch both.
They're going to have to watch both.
You won't be able to get it. You gotta,
I'm completely... By the way, when we were sitting here, though, I did realize that I didn't fully answer your one other question.
What is the other question?
You asked me about the tattoo, the ink on my left arm, and you asked about...
Because I interrupted.
Well, I mean, because you fucking ADD, and
Exactly.
I just let it flow. But I did want to answer this one to you, right? So I tattooed this within that 10-day window that we were unpacking my anger.
Oh,
I'm a visual person,
okay,
and I need visual reminders.
Really?
I'm really dense in a lot of ways. Like as you say, I like use smart words and things, but
you move through words quick, man, and very articulate. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But
you didn't say you accepted it, though.
I've received that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All
okay.
right, I want to make sure that
Uncle Brian, who was run over by a truck and had his arm torn off. If you guys don't understand that joke, go watch his show because it was amazing. And I had a shark attack and I just didn't tell a lot of people. Man, I completely lost where I was
You're
going
a
with that.
visual person.
Visual person. So one of my first coaches gave me something that was really, really easy. Right when I was trying to get more present, he said to me, "Be where your feet are." How grounding is that? To be able to look down and see my feet and be like, okay, I'm right here right now with Kelly.
Yeah.
You've noticed I left my phone on your desk in the other room.
That's awesome.
Why? Because like when I'm with people, I'm with people. I'm not on my phone. I'm not like, I'm present. So be where my feet are. When I'm unpacking anger, these 3 words tattooed on my left arm, I'm convinced are a huge reason that I saved my marriage.
Wow.
Because when I would
say them out.
Trust, surrender, breathe.
Got it.
And here's the reality. If I felt a moment of trigger, I felt a moment of reaction, I can trust that everything's going to work out. Mm-hmm. Trust that I'm going to be okay. Trust that I know that everything happens for a reason. I'm going to surrender to the broader flow of life that I don't understand and stopped attempting to understand a long time ago because I just get in the way of it, right? I surrender to where the energy needs to flow. I surrender to the lessons that need to be learned right in front of me. And I can utilize my breath to center and ground myself in any singular moment, right? Our breath is one of those things that it's the only function within our body that keeps us alive, that will operate without us, or we can completely control. Wow. That's not a coincidence, right? We literally can breathe life, right? You think of a toddler on the tail end of a fit, they're reacting. What's the very first thing they do when they finally give up? Take a big breath to like reset all the restriction, all the shutdown, all the everything. And so often, if I'm not paying attention, my breath will get shallow. But if I can breathe, I can see things more clearly.
Did Mama Bogart get mad at you for putting ink on your body, saying that your body's perfect?
My parents hate ink.
Mama Bogart, I want to apologize to you for him.
My parents hate ink, but they've learned to love and accept it on me.
And I love it how we'll justify it. Like we'll be like, it's got meaning though, and it saved my marriage. But our parents are like, but you should write it in a notebook, bro. Yeah. Like write it in a notebook and read the notebook, Brian. Mama Bogart, I'm feeling you.
I tried to convince my mom to get a tattoo with me on the 30th anniversary of the accident. No, I knew she would never put it anywhere visual. I was like, Mom, can you put it right here behind your ear? No, she would like, no. And I was like, Mom, we can get it. We can hide it somewhere. Nobody will ever even know it's there. It'll be something that like you and I can do together.
Isn't it amazing how we justify things?
It'll like commemorate like that time that we had together. And I thought I had her.
Did you ask her to get like tire tracks?
Mom, could you tire track on your stomach the same? Actually, I want you to do a pattern of all of my scars replicated on your body.
That's going to sound so insensitive if they didn't watch the episode before.
Totally. But I thought I had her.
Yeah.
And then like 10 days beforehand, I confirmed. I'm like, Mom, are we doing this? And she's like, no. She's like, I will never tattoo. I was like, okay, well, you strung me along, Mom. Like now you hurt my feelings. So, all right, full circle back to you. I didn't answer questions.
I can imagine though, if you got, that would be a tattoo of tire marks across your chest. Dude, that would be epic.
It would be.
Can you imagine at the pool?
It would be amazing.
It would make people feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because they would be like, oh man, why the tire track? And then you can
do you see that scar that's underneath it? That actual tattooed tire track is covering up a tire track scar.
Can you imagine how uncomfortable the family would be?
It'd be great.
That asked you at the pool, you're on vacation.
It'd be great.
Dude.
Although here's the thing, like you talked about, like, do I like to fuck with people sometimes? All of my tattoos.
I didn't say that word, Mama Bogart.
No.
I said mess with people. But your son's potty mouth,
I have a potty mouth. I struggle with that. Yeah.
Mama Bogart, I apologize again, not only for the living in sin, but also
for the potty mouth that your son has clearly developed that did not come from her. Yeah. I think my mom has said fuck in front of me one time in my entire life.
Oh, you know she was serious then.
Oh, like literally. But here's the thing, I laughed.
Oh, that makes it worse.
Yeah. Well, I was like 17. And so like when she did it, it shocked me so much. I just like.
What was the context?
I was probably doing I don't remember all of it other than I was probably being a little asshole.
Okay. Got it.
And I was probably giving her a complete run for her money that wasn't justified. And she probably like hit her limit. And that was literally like, it was like one of those like, shut the fuck up moments. And I just like laughed at her. And then I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. But like, Mom, I've never heard you say the word fuck.
Yes. I know your mom was in the video.
Yeah.
So I feel Mama Bogart with me.
She is like, I mean, when you call her Mama Bogart, like it's totally right. Like she's just like, she wants to take care of everybody.
That's awesome.
That's how she operates.
What's her like signature dessert?
Oh, ice cream cake. She makes them. She makes the most bomb ice cream cakes, and she always has. So for every birthday, we always get one.
Does she add like yellow cake over the top?
No, because no. It's she'll do like either Oreo, like ground up. She'll do graham cracker crush. She'll do like you name it. So like one of her signature ones is, and it's a gluten-free version now too, because she's.
Are you gluten-free?
No, but she's been celiac she got diagnosed celiac like 12 years ago. And my son is gluten-free.
Oh, okay.
So she makes all this stuff gluten-free now, but I want to say that it's like a graham cracker crust. And then it's the Blue Bunny Bunny Tracks ice cream with caramel, whipped cream, and then like chocolate shavings on top.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, it's killer. Yeah. And then she makes these no bakes, which are just unreal. And I enjoy a variety of plant-based medicines. And so on the tail end of my daily,
Hold on, man. I was with you too. I was like, man, that was, and then I was like, did you just say you smoke weed every day? Is that what you're
every day
saying? Okay.
Yeah. But I've also microdosed psilocybin for a long time.
Okay. Psilocybin.
Yeah, which is mushrooms. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Huge impacts on my nervous system.
Right before our podcast?
No. But I did say to somebody the other night on the rooftop bar when they found out that I smoke, because I don't hide it. I just don't like promote it often, right? Like,
you still go joint or you go vape?
Oh, I'm a joint guy.
You're a joint guy.
I mean,
like a Cheech and Chong joint, like big one?
Like infused, keef, like all of it. Like if I can, yeah. I mean, it's.
You hand roll or you got the roller?
So I don't do the old school hand roll. I get the pre-rolls.
Got something against it?
No. Probably I just have more dexterity issues with my left hand, so it's easier to roll something else.
They were like, don't let him roll it, man. One side is
don't let him roll it. It won't be tight.
Okay,
yeah. No, right. I mean, it's like, I mean, come on. When you're trying to roll a joint, like I could probably do it, but it's just more effort than I want. So I like the raw pre-roll cones that I can stuff.
Would you say herbal medicine? No,
I said plant-based medicine.
I love you, dude.
Yeah.
I'm loving you more and more as we hang out.
So anyway, on the rooftop bar the other night when somebody said this to me, they were like, oh, like, so you smoke weed often? And I said, yeah. And they were like, okay. And I said, like, if you ran into me after 5 p.m. on any normal day, there's a good chance I've had it in the last few hours. Okay. But there's very rarely a period of time that I won't have consumed at some point in the last 24. So I do consume every day. Okay. It was one of the first things I did to manage pain.
Oh,
and though my pain sense. And it was like hugely impactful.
Really?
Okay. In a whole variety of ways. Oh yeah, big time.
I think my dad was anticipating pain in his life.
Yeah.
And so he smoked a lot when he was younger.
Yeah, that might be. I mean, that's what Cheech, I'm sure, says. Like, I just saw all this damage coming. But, weed really does help a lot. Right?
Yeah,
and I mean, it's funny. I quit drinking a number of years ago. My wife always says, she's like, you were my least favorite person when you drank. You might be my favorite person when you smoke weed.
Really?
Yeah. So, like, alcohol lowers frequency, right? Okay. It brings out shame, anxiety, stress, right? And even though I would drink, and most of the time I would drink to fit in.
Okay.
And here's the thing, alcohol is not a downer for me. It's like I have a little bit.
My pops was.
I have a little bit of energy anyway, right? So when I drink, like I become even louder.
Okay.
I become like even like more energetic, and it can overwhelm. I mean, it can be overwhelming, right? Okay. So, and then weed, like, dude, I like love life and people and where it can take me. And she's like, you just chill. It's like one of the only things I've ever done that actually can slow me down.
Wow.
Which is really, really, really powerful for me as well.
Okay.
So anyway, but point in going all that is I was, smoke weed. So with my mom, where was I going with that? I said, I love plant-based. Oh, these no-bakes. Bro, these no-bakes. After you've smoked weed, mind-blowing.
Are they, they're a no-bake, but are they ice cream?
They're chocolate coated. That's the base. There's peanut butter mixed in. There's oats from like oatmeal. So it's got like a little bit of like texture.
Okay.
They're just delicious. And they're about that big. So you can throw the whole thing in your mouth.
So Mama Boger, the next question is, do they travel well? Because there is a thing called dry ice that you can pack. And since you're only in Arizona and I'm in Carlsbad, this can be shipped to my house same day. Just wanted to let you know.
Yeah.
If you're ever thinking,
I'm gonna have to have Mama Bogert send you some no bakes because yes,
I want the ice cream cake too, man.
So that I don't know if we could ship it.
No, you gotta freeze it like strong so it's hard ice cream. I don't like soft ice cream.
I don't either.
You know what I'm saying? Like
I don't either.
If
I don't need it when it melts. I know.
If I'm going soft serve, I'm cool. But if I want hard,
otherwise I want it. I don't want it melting. Like, I'm the exact same way.
I want Brian not to be able to get it with his left hand kind of ice cream.
Right. Like, or not be able to like hold the container well enough to scoop it or whatever. Any one of those things.
That's the prerequisite for me.
Dude, I love it. All right. We're going to get there. We're going to make that happen.
Okay.
Take me back to your childhood.
Which part?
You talk about the challenges and some of the difficulty.
Yeah.
Take me to the darkest moment you can remember.
Me and my buddies were out, and one of my friends, there was a little Chihuahua, and all of us, when you're out in the boonies, you need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. As
boys, you just pee.
Yeah.
And there was a little Chihuahua, and one of my friends thought it was funny, and he peed on the dog. And this is going to get me hit with PETA.
My wife is going to attack you.
And it was a Chihuahua. And I know you got Chihuahuas too. You got to have a wife to have Chihuahuas because any single man with Chihuahuas, you ain't going to get married. But he pees on the dog and we all laugh and I pee on the dog too. So then I guess one of the kids snitches and I get home and my dad's like, "What'd you do?" And I said, "I peed on the dog." Or I didn't say it. He said, "You thought it was funny and you peed on the dog." Blah, blah, blah. And he took me and, whooped me pretty good. I deserved it, right? Mm-hmm. I acted like I didn't. I lied to him and told him I didn't, which I still regret to this day. And he had whipped me. This is like 6th grade. So he had me take down my pants and whip me with the belt. Or he didn't have me take down my pants, but he just got me pretty good. And my parents my dad was in the military. He had just...
What branch?
Air Force.
Okay. My dad was the Air Force too.
My dad was hot or cold, so he had just found the Lord. So he got involved with the MLM, one of the first criminal MLMs.
Okay.
And he bought this course for $4,500 to teach him how to be a millionaire, and it taught you to just go out and sell this course to a bunch of other people for $4,500 and you would be a millionaire. At the time, he was making $800 a month. So he didn't have $4,500.
Yeah.
Caused a lot of pain and stress in our family. We went to one of the conventions. He heard this guy named Reverend Hale, and he found Jesus. Well, at this time, my dad was like all in. And then he came home one day and he said, "It's done. God told me just to get out of the Air Force." And after 14 years, not he only had 6 years to retire. 14 years in, he just says, I'm just getting out.
Wow.
So that's the precursor to this Chihuahua.
And did he actually leave at 14 years?
He left at 14 years. So he gets a moving truck. The moving truck comes, and all the kids in the neighborhood are just normal. Like, the moving truck is normal. So all the kids start asking, why, like, where are you moving? And we said, we don't know. And they're like, where are you moving? And we were like, we don't know. And then I remember the third time they were like, no, seriously, where are you moving? Because everyone moved on base.
Yeah.
And I turned and I was pissed. And I was like, I don't know. Because my dad had just hired movers to put it in a moving van, but we didn't have any place to go.
Yeah.
Just getting out of the military. Well, during this thing happens, I pee on the dog. He whoops my ass. Mm-hmm. My mom and him get into a little bit of a scuffle. And we're packing to go to someplace we don't have any place to go. And I go to him and my mom are in a fight. She walks into my room. I'm changing. She looks at my legs and she said, what happened? And I said, well, I got spanked and they were pretty large marks. And she said, I've never seen my mom move this quick, but she said, pack up your clothes. And she went in my brother's room, had him pack up his clothes, had my other brother pack up your clothes. She waited for my dad to go and get some boxes to pack up the house. And she put us in the car and we went into hiding.
Wow. How old were you?
I was in 6th grade. And so my brother, I think, had it worse because he was like the star quarterback, star point guard, star pitcher. He was the guy. Every girl wanted to hang out with my brother.
Who's the oldest?
My oldest is Guy. Okay. So he's the doctor now.
Okay.
The middle is the lawyer, and he was the guy. Like, everyone loved him.
Got it.
And we go into hiding. I'm in 6th grade, and go into hiding. We go to my mom's friend's house. Her name is Sherry. And we show up, and my mom, I learned a lesson. Now I understand the lesson. But my mom allowed someone else to bless her. Because we were always taught, never ask anyone for anything. You do it on your own. But we went to the house, and here she is with her 2 sons. One of them is in 10th grade, one's in 8th grade, one's in 6th grade. And this Sherry lady invites us into her house. She's got a family of her own, and we literally sleep on the couch in the middle of the room and for like 2 weeks. And we're going to school. My mom is dropping us off at the bus stop, and we're acting like nothing's going on.
Wow.
But we're literally homeless at the time, but we were staying at a friend's house. And what's going through my mind, not as much, it was a little bit later, but I caused this to happen.
Yeah, you blamed yourself.
I peed on the dog. I lied to my dad. He whooped me. Because he whooped me and put marks on me, my mom now leaves my dad. Yeah. So, after 2 weeks, we find a 1-bedroom apartment, and, there's 4 of us there. My mom's working 14 to 18 hours a day. She sleeps in the front room on a pull-out couch. Sometimes she doesn't even pull it out because she's so tired. Me and my brothers sleep on 2 twin mattresses on the floor, pushed together, and I sleep in the middle because I'm the youngest. Yeah. And they would make fun of me because of that. But it was a dark time because you're going to school and you're like, you want to be cool. I can't get clothes that other kids have. I'm getting clothes from a thrift store, and it's not cool at the time. I'm getting hand-me-downs. I remember one time I wanted some white pants which no guy should ever wear white pants. But it was a Valentine's dance, and I said, Mom, I want these white pants, black suspenders, black tie. I have the picture. I thought I was gangster. Yeah. And my mom couldn't really afford it, so she went out and she got me some elastic band white pants that were women's pants from like Kmart or whatever it was. And it was just, there was the embarrassment part, but also too, it was like, I don't know. I think that caused the grit, the resilience, because it was like, shit, like now I got to be cool. Now I got to have game. Yeah. You got to be able to, what we referred to as pull, in that day. Yeah. And I didn't have the stuff other people had. So I couldn't rely on like, yo, baby, you see my shoes? Because my shoes were my brother's shoes like 6 months ago, if you watched.
Now you have amazing shoes, by the way.
And so that was a hard time, but I look back on it and my buddy Will remembers it. He always stayed the night at our house in that 1-bedroom apartment. We would play, my mom took socks, rolled them together the way you used to do socks, sewed them up, and it became a baseball. And we played baseball out in the little tiny lawn. So it was dark, but it was also, I never I never saw any of it as nasty at the time.
What did Mama Cardenas see before the marks on your leg that led her to make that decision in that moment?
There was a lot of stuff, man. She was married. I mean, she got with my dad at 13. He was 16. He came from a broken home. He was in foster care. There was abuses, physical abuses. There was sexual abuse. There was all that stuff. So he came into it pretty scarred up. He's an amazing man. But my mom was 13 when she met him. She got married at 16 in her parents' front yard.
Wow.
I mean, my daughter's 15 years old.
Yeah.
Ain't no damn way that she's getting married
right.
at 16. So this was it was normal. And then my mom has my brother because she's pregnant. Mm-hmm. That's why she gets married. Mm-hmm. But most people didn't put it together. They got married in April and he was born in October, and everyone was like, oh, they just loved each other. No, they got married because my bro, like, so I always, told him, I was like, you're an accident when we were growing up. But by the time she's 18 years old, she has me. And so she's 18. She's got 2 kids I'm freshly born, but my dad gets stationed in Taiwan and it's a remote, but she flies by herself at 18 and a half years old with no cell phone. I mean, there's no cell phones at this time, flies across the world as an 18-year-old, only grew up in Utah, in Tooele, Utah. And I just think about those things that she went through. And to get to your question of why, what it came to is there was just tons of abuses, man. There was alcohol, there was, there was drugs, there was all those things. And, but they were so heavily committed. Mm-hmm. And then she was Mama Bear.
As soon as she saw her boy, that's what happened.
Anything that steps in. But I look at it, I talked to her about it later on, and it was like there was a lot more going on in their relationship. Yep. I mean, here's this woman that her man comes home after 14 years in the military, and he's going to retire in 6 years with full benefits and
then he
have
bails.
Retirement, and he steps away from it.
Yeah.
He finds Jesus, is what he says, and when he finds Jesus, he doesn't really communicate to my mom. He doesn't sit down. He's just like, it's over. Yeah. It's done. And then he just kind of moves on because he's okay.
Yeah.
He assumes that she's okay. And I think that part was a big one.
Yeah. Well, if I'm doing the math correctly, Mama Cardenas at 30 years old took her boys and started a new life. The strength, the conviction, the courage that took to protect her boys. It's interesting. There's some synergies that exist in our dialogue. My mom was 30 when my accident happened, right? And I look at the fact that I don't know that I would have been able to handle what she did at 30 to be able to step up to and take care of all the stuff that she did. No different for your mom, right? She's got 3 boys that she's jumping in and hitting with. And when you said really Mama Bear kicked in, it actually took me full circle to another component that I know for a fact is why Ashley finally came to her at the end of her rope. It's because she viewed that energy as a dynamic that existed in our relationship. But the second it started transitioning to our kids, or she would see them lock up, or if she saw how my reaction in a moment would create some damage, Mama Bogert kicked in. Right. She jumped in to be like, I'm keeping these kids safe, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure Brian can see what he needs to see so that can change. So that Mama Bear mode, Mama Cardenas, I'm going to look into the camera and talk directly to you like your son has done to my mom and to my bride multiple times. And I want to say thank you for your courage, for your conviction, and for your strength to be able to create a safe and protected environment for your boys to be able to grow up so that we have this beautiful individual of a man who's creating impact in the world has the chance to do so. Like, that's amazing. How long did you blame yourself?
I think a long time. I mean, I think I still, had remnants of it. But it was also too, it was cycles. Like when I talked about cycles, I'm deep rooted in I'm the epitome of cycle. That same scenario happened right before my senior year of high school too. So, you know, my parents were separated and then they got back together, and then, you know, my pops had kind of just done odd jobs, things like that. And then he got a job with the school system, and we lived out in a place called Gaviota, and the people that, I grew up with in Lompoc, California, it's about 40 miles away from our high school. So we had, you know, me and my brother from the time he was 16 and I was 14, we were driving 40 miles each way to our high school on our own. And we only had one car in the family. And, my dad got to a point and he did the same thing. Like right before my senior year, he said, it's over. And we were like, what do you mean? And he's like, it's over, it's done. And you know, his job ended at that place, and we got the moving truck again. But this time the moving truck wasn't a U-Haul because we couldn't afford it. It was just a bunch of my friends' trucks. And my buddy Dale, who I love that dude more than anything, he had his like beige truck with a shell, and he came out and we packed up our stuff and we were driving, and Mama Cardenas was in the middle and I was on the side, and he was like, he's a giant of a man. He's a monster of a man. Dale is, not only as far as physically, but just as far as his heart. And he said, oh guys, where are we going? And I flashed back at that time because we didn't know where we were going. And I couldn't answer him. And, you know, we joked it off, and that's what I've done. I've used comedy throughout my life to deal with
I can tell.
Stuff.
I can tell.
We drove into town and we stopped by my dad's friend, this time not my mom's friend, but her name we called her Grandma Carolyn. And she reminded me because she had the voice of the lady on the Goonies, the villain on the Goonies. If you could hear that voice.
I can.
And we show up.
And I also immediately saw the truffle shuffle happening.
Of course.
Like there's no way there's any way to not.
So that's a way to avoid pain too, is the comedy. You saw it in real time, but we pull up to the house and my dad's hanging out, whatever, and the lady's about to sell her house. So she's taking all the furniture out of it. And she asks him, where are you going to go? Because she was in the military with my dad. And he said, well, we just don't know. And she said, you can stay here. So, but there was no furniture. Yeah. So, and it was a big house. So she said, find a room wherever you want to be. And all of us just grabbed some blankets and, you know, we slept on the floor. And this was right before my senior year. And then we stopped by another friend's house and they said, hey, we're just about to go to Indonesia for 3 weeks. You could just stay here. And so we lived in their house because we didn't have any place to live. Yeah. And so that cycle again, like, the crazy thing, but again, it was just normal. So my friends come over and they visit this house that we don't live in and it's not ours. And they're just like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. C, what are you guys up to? You know, and we're just hanging and we're trying to make it. My mom made the craziest things in the world the most normal. And I think that she did it through her heart.
That's a gift.
Loving people, and through her prayer. And I just always say that she was a prayer warrior, always, no matter what it was, that she was always praying us through it. So.
That's twice that you've told a story where you had to tell people you had no idea where you were going. There's a lot of ambiguity, a lot of fear, a lot of unknown that's wrapped up in both those situations, right? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too, because this concept of like instant gratification that we've talked about also, I'm sure, is somewhat connected to some of this. But it's something that I really want to pause with you for in just a second, because others have experienced those same things. But for you in particular, the idea of moving in a moment with no clarity on where you're going, how did that feel to you then?
I didn't take enough time. I didn't take any time to, I've never really given it any thought. My wife thinks that I'm funny when I say it, but to me, there's certain words that I don't use because I don't want to give them any power in my life.
What words are they?
Anxiety, depression, those things. And not to say that they're not real in certain people's lives, and people don't go through, challenges and things like that. For me, I never wanted to give it any power. And I think to the detriment part of it, I mean, it was just like, I never sat for long enough because I always felt like I needed to be on the move. I've been on the move my whole life. I mean, in every sense of the word. Like, before up until I was 30 years old, I had never lived in the same residence for over 2 years. And for me, living in a hotel for the first, the speaking career that I was talking about in the professional beauty industry, I was on the road sometimes 43 weekends a year, and I could live out of a suitcase, and I could live in those things. And just for the first time when I moved here to Carlsbad, this was 11 years ago. So this was, I was 37. At 37, I finally felt that I was at home. And I've never felt that before. I never cared where I lived. I never cared how fast I was going. I never cared in those things. So yeah, and it's been amazing because it's been wild because that question that you said, like, and you can say it, like, you've been talking with a lot of people recently, and my name has come up. And what has been the thing that they've said?
He seems like a great guy. I love his vibe and his energy. I have no idea what the fuck he does. I've heard that 4 times in the last 3 weeks, which I also love and appreciate the intent behind that for you and how you architected that, because it forces people to get to know who you are before there's any criticism or judgment tied to what you do. What I also hear in all of this is you're like many other high performers, like myself included. You learn to receive love, validation, and connection through performance, which meant that so much of your value for periods of your life was contingent upon what you did, how you showed up, how you delivered it to other people. And the reality of it is that to get centered and grounded in yourself, it also requires us to evolve through that, right? I mean, you've talked about the numbing through avoidance, the numbing through comedy, the numbing through, I work myself and don't sit still very long because I don't have to feel and acknowledge the pain. But to be able to get to a place where like you are able to center in who you are so clearly that the what no longer matters, that's freedom. And it's a really beautiful architected approach that you've created. I don't give a fuck what you do, by the way. I think you're an awesome human. But like literally they would like ask me that. They're like, what does he do? I'm like, I don't know. I was like, I think he was in the beauty industry for a long time. I said, he's got a podcast. He speaks. I don't know. But it's, again, no pun intended. I literally was like, I love his vibe. Explain the concept of vibe.
Well,
and where did it come from?
Well, it happened on accident. I think like every other thing that's in my life that's beautiful. And I've resisted this stuff. Like we talked about it, earlier, where people will say, you got to be authentic and you got to have authenticity and you got to be vulnerable and all this stuff. And they have those taglines. And for me, every single thing that's been awesome has just happened by accident. And when I say accident, I know that God had a design in it, but it wasn't something that I, set an intention, cold bathed 6 times, and then it just became clear and had clarity and spent 5 minutes doing this. And I had a ritual in the morning and I had to make sure, no, none of that stuff. My dad bought dog clippers because we didn't have enough money to shave the dog. So he thought, and he was the type of guy, old school, why am I going to pay somebody to shave the dog when my kids could do it? That's how he would sound. That's my pops. That's his voice. And so
I grew up in a house that didn't pay anybody for anything. So we always did it. I get it.
He bought the dog clippers and we tried to shave the dog and the dog ran away. So we turned them on each other and and so that turned into a professional beauty career where I got to travel the world and be around. There was Paul Mitchell or Vidal Sassoon, the pinnacle. Paul Mitchell was his artistic director. Robert Cromines was his artistic director. And I was Robert's guy. Wow. So but it wasn't because I set out to do that. No, in 1993, when I went to hair school, if you went to hair school as a guy, you weren't trying to tell anybody. It wasn't a popular thing. Yeah. But my parents gave me principles, right? They said, if you're going to do something, you do it at the best of your ability. Don't compare yourself to anybody else, but you have to do it to the best of your ability and we will support you 100%. You don't have to be the best at it, but you have to be the best that you possibly can be. And so I was like, so I went all in. I was changing oil at a garage, Brian. And I signed up for beauty school. And then when all the guys said, you can't work here anymore, why? And I was like, because I'm going to school. They said, for what? And I said, stuff. And I used to take Elle and Cosmopolitan magazine and put it inside of Popular Mechanics while I was waiting for my dad in the office to pick me up from the garage, because all the guys would make fun of me if I was reading a girly magazine. And when they'd walk in, I would just close it real quick and it was Popular Mechanics, because I had to go all in. And so when I went all in at the professional beauty industry, I just found number one. You know, the Deming process, you know, Dr. Edwards Deming, he said, you know, when the guy came to him, he said, who are you? He said, I'm the number 2 at GM. He said, well, give me number 1 or nothing can happen.
Yeah.
And so I learned that side and I went after number 1. And the number 1 at the time was a guy named Robert Cromeans. And I just followed him around the country for 2.5 years. And I gave him my business card until he was either going to kill me or hire me. And so I applied those things as we went through, and it was just, it happened. And so I had a conversation with a guy, his name is Paul Long, phenomenal guy. You got to meet him. One of the best keynote speakers in the world.
Beautiful.
This dude is phenomenal. He has a thing called fundemism, but he lives it. He's not just a shtick. And we were on a conversation and I said, man, I'm struggling, Paul, because, and I'm still going through this process, man. Like, I deliberately did not bring the professional beauty industry audience with me. I did that on purpose. So it's hard to say. But in the professional beauty industry, I had done some things.
Okay.
But I deliberately, when I walked away from it, I said, I'm not going to bring the audience because I want to go where no one knows me. I want to go and I want to build this thing. And when I build this thing, I want to build it on my own merit, not what I did before.
Yeah.
And it was rough. It's been rough. And everyone was like, you got to have a thing. You got to have a thing. And when you have the thing, you can only talk about the thing. And so if you have the niche and you have the thing, and I was like, it doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
And then I got on the phone with Paul. He was a friend of a guy named Wayne Freeman. And Paul said something. He said, because I said, I'm struggling with that. Everyone keeps telling me I have to have a thing. And he said, do you feel you have to have a thing? And I was like, no. He's like, you're a vibe. And I was like, have you read my book? It wasn't the vibe book yet.
Yeah.
It was the 6 indicators for business life, but chapter number 2 was vibe. And I sat back and I sat in it and I was like, vibe. And then I just started hearing it. And I would hear people say, like, I went to this restaurant. I wasn't really feeling the vibe. I had the speaker. He had all this great information, but his vibe was off. And then I started to hear it over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I realized that the 6 indicators, which were culture, vibe, process and procedure, productivity, innovation, and the ability to adapt immediately, which was everything in business. There's nothing outside of those that you would need to score to be able to make your business successful. And that's how we built our business. I realized that none of them mattered if the vibe was off.
It's the truth.
None of them.
It's the truth, man.
And so that was a thing. And so I said, like, you know, how could I bring that, you know, and the paradigm shift I told you before, it was when I used to think, I got to bring this energy in. That's my vibe. Well, it was the way that people felt. And then how could that happen? The only way that someone will feel, and I felt this with you earlier in the interview, the only way that a person will feel comfortable with you, the only way is if your heart, your mind, and your skills are in line.
I agree.
And you're doing the things that you actually believe. And your intentions are in line with what you believe and your actions are in line. But most of the time we flip it, and I think of it as like a triangle. Most people flip it the other way.
Yeah.
And they lead with their actions, which has the smallest amount of real estate on that triangle. They lead with their skills and they think it'll develop their mind and hopefully at some point it'll drop into their heart.
Yep.
But we've met them and you work with them all the time. You're the best at it, where this person has done that and they've built this whole entire life and they do all these things and then they have millions, billions, billions of dollars, gazillions of dollars, and they have all these things and their family's falling apart, their marriage is falling apart because they built it on their skill as opposed to their heart. But honestly, it's all by accident. Like, And when I say accident, it's beautiful design because that's what God does. But I think that God does that in my life because otherwise, what I would do, Brian, is I would systemize it, I would package it, I would sell it, and then I'd become their God. And God is like, I ain't sharing my glory with nobody.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're energetic creatures. So the concept of vibe is everything. I mean, I've said for years, I'll hire somebody who has a good attitude and a good energy over a skill set all day long because I can train anybody anything.
Yeah.
Right? But there's certain things you can't teach. Right? Like you can teach the development and the integration and the healing between the heartset and the mindset, but it takes time. It's not instant. Mm-hmm. And the person has to be open to it and put in the work to make it work. Right? So within a business, you can't necessarily always teach that. So for me, I've always prioritized vibe and energy over everything else because it tells you so much about a person. Right? And even to the concepts of what we've talked about, it's like even in that energetic exchange, the second we protect ourselves, we start diluting the actual authentic energy with who we are and how we deliver our messages. And it truly separates us from who we are and what we want. And so I love the synergy and the integration with everything. What is a question that you wished everyone would ask you?
What makes you feel awesome?
So what's the answer to that question?
I think it's different at different times. You know, I mean, there's been a lot of, Anthony Trucks talked about it the other day. He talked about dark work. Right?
I love trucks.
Which is awesome.
The dark work so you can shine in the light.
Yeah, and it hit me. And it was like, there's some times where I want someone to say, like, did you make the free throw in practice when no one was watching? Sometimes I want to hear that. Sometimes if they ask me, I'll be like, yeah, I did. Thank you. Right now, I want them to ask me, like, the other day, this is the simplest thing. The other day, I realized how to put an end card on my YouTube videos. And I was so happy. How to lead someone to another video that I had done and a playlist that I had done when my YouTube channel was sending people to other people's stuff. And at the end of that day, I wanted someone to be like, hey, man, how did that end card work out?
Yeah.
The reason why I want it is because I lost my best friend a little over 2 years ago.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Every day, he would call me. Every day. And he would listen. And he would ask me what was important to me. He was listen. And there was times where I would tell him I need to go because there's another phone call breaking in. And I'd take the call and he would just be okay. He'd be like, no problem, just call me right back. And every morning, if I called him and I got him earlier than he got me, I'd be like, what have you been doing, boy? I've been up for 4 hours. I got half a day's working. What are you doing? You're getting lazy on me. And then he'd beat me the next day. And that guy was my pop. I'm
sorry for your loss. Like, truly, brother, I can feel it all. Thank you for sharing that.
But I was so encouraged my whole entire life every day. My mom would encourage me. My dad would encourage me. And I realized, like, once they left, how much that meant. And what I realized was how much it means to people just to be encouraged. Like, so many people never hear their name in a day. Yeah. They don't hear their name. They don't hear, Kelly, you did great. Brian, you did great. And not just great, but you did this thing great. And I know my brother told me the other day, he's a huge encourager of me. And he told me, he's like, do you think that Michael Jordan needed somebody to say, great job on that free throw in practice? He just did the work. But some days I would like someone to ask, like, you know, what's important to you right now? But, you know, with my pop, like, you know, when you said you're sorry, like, you didn't do it, you know?
No, I can empathize with loss and grieving. And that's where the sorry comes from. That's not me taking any ownership for it. It's being with you in a moment. Yeah. I'm really grateful that you allowed the level of emotion that you just showed, especially knowing how much you try to avoid pain and painful moments and painful discussions. Allowing me to guide you there and for you to share what you just did is extremely powerful. What's important to you right now?
My family. My family is massive. My brother. I want to spend as much time with my brother as possible. He's my hero. Not feeling alone. Because I always had those encouraging parts, like my mom. You know, my mom passed away in 2018. And then my dad passed away 2 years ago in 2021. And that's when I was transitioning out of the professional beauty industry at that time and going into another realm. And, you know, I realized that a lot of my stuff was tied to accomplishment. And I realized what my parents had told me and shared with me. I realized what it actually meant once they left, you know. But the loneliness part, that part has been tough. I mean, although I've reveled in work that I do by myself that most people don't understand. When I got in the professional beauty industry, everyone was like, that's cute. Like, how are you going to make money? When I got into this space, as far as the podcasting part, they were like, how are you going to make money? So I always use that as a marker, as like, I must be on the right track because they're saying the same stuff and it worked out before and I know it'll work out. But also too, I want my kids to be proud of me. I want my wife to be proud of me. I want my brother to be proud of me.
So walk through it in that order. What would your kids say about you? What would your wife say about you? What would your brother say about you?
I think my kids would say that I love them. I think my wife would say, stop trying. Just be. I think my brother would say, you're a bad motherfucker.
Asked differently, what would you want them to each say about you?
Someday, I want my kids to call me Pops. Because what he meant to be when he became Pop, he was dad early on, super disciplinarian. When he became Pops, he was this wise, like, just there, listened, encouraged, never showed tough love, just showed love. With my wife, I want her to be able to relax. And I want to be like my friend Eric. Eric Compton. Because he's like Papa Bear to everybody. In every sense of the word. And I just want my brother to say that's my brother.
I'm extremely grateful for your transparency, for your heart, for your desire. You, my friend, are an incredible human being. Regardless of whatever's happened in the past, you know this better than anybody. Every moment is all about the choices you make in each moment. And what I can tell you is that you're still carrying a bunch of weight that you no longer need to carry. And just because you can carry it doesn't mean it's not fucking heavy.
What you can probably tell by now is that I love telling these stories, but what I love even more is the impact that's coming from them. You see, we're on a mission to impact over 1 billion lives as quickly as possible, but to do that, we need you. See, we believe that moved people move people. And so all I'm asking is if you've resonated, connected with any of the messaging, please consider commenting, sharing, leave a rating and review. Thank you so much for tuning into Flipping the Lid. And if you want more information on the show, how to become a guest, how to recommend a guest, or any of the other details, head over to flippingthelid.com.